This is Nan McKay, and I would like to introduce you today to Jonas Lyddby. He is the captain of the Quest, Azamara Quest cruise ship, which is really exciting to be here with you today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
We have met on the cruise. We are on a 10-day cruise. It's both a wine and culture cruise, and we are going from Southampton, England, to France, on to Spain, and then on to Portugal. So it's an exciting cruise and probably a normal one for you because you've been on so many.
There is no such thing as a normal cruise. There are always surprises popping up.
Well, I'd like to think about from your Swedish
Yeah,
naval
Swedish.
experience through your formal education. It seems like the sea was always featured in your trajectory for your career. It seems like that as I read things. And so I want to talk about that. And then you've sailed on all types of ships, not just passenger ships, but you've kind of settled on the passenger ship. So let's find out more about what he's done in his career, where he's going with it, what does he see in the future. So welcome, Jonas. We're just delighted to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Let's start out about your memories way back when you were a toddler, and you were a toddler at Malmo, right?
Yes,
Have I got that
Sweden,
right?
That's correct.
What happened that kind of turned you on to the sea?
I don't really know. I always, when I grew up, the sea was always there. My father had a sailing yacht, small sailing boat. We went out, the family, we had our adventures, and I sort of liked it. I still like the sea a lot. I cannot remember the time when I didn't like the sea.
It's so interesting. When I talked to another captain, Antonio, he told me much of the same thing, that you kind of grow up with the sea,
Yeah.
and either you're fascinated with it and you want to be a part of it or whatever happens with it, or maybe you don't, but you did.
Yes,
at
I
the
did.
time.
I told my grandma that I'm going to be captain already when I was like 4 years old.
And she's probably no longer with us
No.
at this point, but she would have been smiling, wouldn't she?
Probably.
The Swedish naval experience then that you had also really contributed to that professional career that you had at sea. So tell us about some of those years and how you felt that influenced your decision.
Well, I did the military service in Sweden, and I was lucky enough to end up in the Navy. The Swedish Navy is not that fancy. It is close to the sea, but no, not very big. It's not like merchant shipping, it's small ships. I did my 15 months, and I felt, okay, this is not so bad. I want to see more of it. So I did additional 2 years, and I became a reserve officer, which I still am. I did it mostly because I liked the sea, not because I liked the military. But I also had some good things from the military I brought with me. So I think it was beneficial, even though maybe I did not like it that much really when I was there.
Well, you're young, you're trying to figure out what it is
exactly.
you want to do. Then your education is interesting because you have a master's degree in civil
I do,
engineering.
yes.
And you got that from the Royal Institute of Technology at Stockholm,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So how did that experience lead you to the Maritime Academy in Kalmar?
Not at all is the answer.
Interesting. Because I looked at that
Yeah.
and I thought,
No,
right,
it's a
is there a
completely
link
different thing.
somehow?
The only link I see is that shipping is also a very technique-intense industry. I mean, you need to know your maths, your mechanics when loading a ship. And of course, these things I got plenty of in this training in Stockholm, education in Stockholm. Other than that, the reason why I ended up at the Institute of Technology in Stockholm with a Master of Science degree in civil engineering was mainly because of my father. I blame him. And
We always blame our parents
yes,
for this,
yes.
yes.
He was a construction engineer. He had a construction company. So, I mean, when you're young, you're more adaptive to advice before finding your own way. So, of course, I listened to my parents. I did my homework and I have my master's degrees. I started to work to find out that, okay, this is not what I want to do.
And you were working at that point in engineering?
In Stockholm, yes.
Yeah.
In Stockholm.
And for an engineering firm doing consulting, or what were you
No,
doing?
it was like just a random business company.
Okay.
I never really worked with engineering. I did not.
And then you said, I think I'll go back to the sea, and is that when you went to the Maritime Academy?
Well, I simply couldn't imagine myself sitting until retirement in an office doing what people do in offices. So I resigned and I started the academy. I am fortunate enough to be born in a country where education is free. So I was free to have a second round in university, and I took that chance.
So the Maritime Academy is like a university? I've
Yes.
never heard of it, so I'm trying to
it's
figure out what it is.
Same status.
Okay.
Where I come from, it's financed through taxes
Mm-hmm.
by the government, and whoever applies will be. They look at the application, and the one with the best grades gets admitted. That's how it works.
I wish we had something like that in the U.S., but maybe eventually. So then, from that point, even though you had sailed a number of different types of ships,
Until then, was only Navy ships.
okay, and were those battleships, or what are
No,
those?
not really. It was very tiny minesweeper, like a fishing
Okay.
trawler.
Okay,
So
but
not
then
really anything
you start-
spectacular.
you started to concentrate on passenger ships. Is that right?
Well, when entering the Marine Academy, the focus is not there yet. It's a broad approach to the whole shipping industry. So I was looking at tankers, I was looking at roll-on, roll-off cargo ships, I was looking at ferries, passenger ships, anything and everything. You usually do not choose the track until you get further into the career, and that was taken.
And what you chose then was passenger ships. at that
I
point.
knew from the beginning that passenger shipping is what will keep me interested, and so far that has proved to be correct.
So what were the steps along the way from the Maritime Academy to Azamara? That's probably a space in there, right?
Yes.
And what happened in that space?
What happened in that space? Well, I started the academy. It is a 4-year training in Sweden, 1 year as apprentice and 3 years theoretical education.
Mhm.
And I was a little older. I started when I was 32, so it's not too late when you're 32. I had colleagues older than me in the academy. And of course, it was a little difficult to step back and make another round as apprentice. It's a full year as apprentice, and it's just to start to ticking the days off, do the job, learn the job, and then sooner than you know, you'll find yourself with a year completed on board and the 3 years completed in the academy. So when I was 36, I had my officer license, and then I went to work.
And where did you go to work?
I went on container ships, cargo ships, because with a small number of crew, big ships, very intense itineraries and very intense working schedules. I assumed that this is where I can learn the profession properly. And it turned out to be correct also.
So now you're on cargo ships.
Yes.
How did you get over to the passenger side?
As I said before, I was focused to go on passenger ships from the beginning, but the good thing with the container ships is that from a ship point of view, they are quite similar to passenger ships.
I shouldn't be surprised at that.
They
I mean,
have
the size of them.
Yeah, the size, the speed, the hull form,
Mm-hmm.
the basic properties are similar. So it was a good start, and I was admitted after 2.5 years. I was admitted to a company called Star Cruises. They do not exist anymore, but it was a good entry to the cruise industry.
And then where did you go from there? What position?
I entered in Star Cruises as watch officer.
Okay.
And that was the final step before Azamara, actually. And this was in 2008. And if you remember, there was a financial crisis,
Right,
2008.
right.
And Star Cruises, they laid off the ships and they laid off the personnel. I was the last one in, so I was the first one out. So I went home, okay, contract
What do I do
canceled,
now?
exactly. So I started to look around, and it didn't turn out to be very hard to find a new ship. So already after 3 weeks, I was on my way again to the Azamara Quest, where we're sitting right now.
So you've done the quest the entire time?
No, I was on journey as well.
On Journey as well? Okay. And Onward is the new one, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
Are you going to eventually want to do that, or
I
are
don't
they
know.
all kind
They
of the
are
same?
exactly the same,
Yeah.
sister ships.
Yeah.
Onboard is new to Azamara, but it's not a new ship. It's a sister ship of the Azamara Quest. From a shipping point of view, as good as identical.
So what, other than the fact that you needed a job, what interested you about Azamara? Why go to
Nothing particular. It was a
Okay.
coincidence that I ended up here. I applied with Celebrity Cruises, and Azamara was a part of Celebrity Cruises. And initially, they wanted me to be assigned for the Mercury, but with very short notice, was changed.
And how did you get to captain?
I mean, there are lots of positions on a cruise ship. I did my watch duty here as deck officer. I did one contract as navigation officer. I did 5 weeks as safety officer before signing off. It was really intense period, and then I stayed away for half a year, and I was looking at other things, but eventually I came back again, and I did another 3 months safety officer on Azamara Journey before being lifted over to TUI Cruises. So I disappeared from Azamara, and I was gone for 10 years.
10 years? That is a long time.
Yes. I ended up with a German company, TUI Cruises, because I speak German. And they are really trying very hard to find German-speaking officers, so I was one of them.
And then you came back?
Yeah,
to
career continued. I continued my safety officer duties on this Mein Schiff, as it's called. I was promoted staff captain, and then promoted captain. I did almost 5 years as captain with TUI Cruises before leaving the cruise industry completely in 2019. I thought I was done with cruise shipping, and I worked back home as a marine pilot during the pandemic and until now, February 2022. And again, since then I'm on a new round, cruise shipping.
So when you say a marine pilot, tell me what that means.
It is a function that normally government appoints a pilot, which is like a specialist for a certain area. And as a pilot, you board the ship and you make sure that the ship enters the port safely.
That's what I thought
Yes.
you might mean, but I thought, I'm not sure. You see the little pilot boats
Yes.
come up
Yes.
every time you go
Yes.
into a
And the
a big
pilot
area.
embarks the ship
Mhm.
and comes to the bridge and advises us about the entry, about currents, about shallows, about where we're going to dock, blah, 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 lots of things.
And then they take you back out, don't they
Yes,
usually?
yes. They leave while we're at port. When we're about to depart, they come on board again, and then it's same thing backwards.
In thinking back on your career, what would you say is a significant moment for you?
I think the significant moment was when I had the courage to resign from my fairly well-paid office job and go for my dream.
I love what you're saying because I think that so many people feel, well, I've made my choice. I better slog it out, even though I don't really like it. And
Change is always possible.
yeah,
Yes.
you know, then you wake up and you're 55, you're 60,
What happened?
and you say, now, you know, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I could have done it
Yes.
then. Why didn't I
Yes.
take that leap?
Yeah.
But it's a
Yeah.
leap of faith, isn't it? in a
It
way?
is initially uncomfortable because you need to leave things that you already had. I had to leave my car, I had to leave a well-paid job, I had to leave my apartment and squeeze myself into a dormitory again. But okay, it was worth it.
But it's worth it in the long run,
Yes,
isn't it?
it's worth it.
It's
in the
worth
long
it.
run.
Now, as captain, when I think about your role, it seems like a CEO in a way. You're responsible
maybe,
for everything that happens
On board,
on the ship,
yeah.
no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Basically, they point back to you,
Yeah.
I would
Yes.
imagine. So you've got a lot of managerial levels. How do you coordinate those managerial levels to get everybody working toward the same goal? How do you do that? What do you do?
I think it works like on any big work site. We're about 400 employees on board this ship,
Mhm.
and I meet with the managers once every second week we discuss the previous cruise, the coming cruise, any issues that might arise. I'm obliged to report to my boss in Miami in the US, and we have a weekly video conference. And same there, we discuss things that are coming up, things that just passed, challenges.
One of the things that I was just amazed by, blown away by, I don't know what you sort of say, but when we came into Bordeaux, and I'm seeing, are we going to tender in? No, he's going over toward the edge. He's going right to the sidewalk kind of thing.
Yes.
I was just blown away by that.
Yeah.
Was that a hard thing to do?
I had my. It's always, you can always read about the port and obtain information about what's about to happen. The challenge in a port like Bordeaux is the current. I'm not very used to currents. I know how it works in theory, but I don't have a lot of hands-on experience with current, and I have very big respect for current because the current takes you wherever it goes,
One way or
and
the
there
other.
is no way to fight against. So you just need to play along the game, and especially on departure when it's dark, it can be difficult to see exactly how the current moves. But okay, that's what makes the job interesting
it
and
was
exciting.
probably the most exciting.
And this is typically when you want a pilot on board.
Yes. Did you have a pilot on
Of
board?
course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we had a long entry down the river, didn't
Yeah,
we?
6 hours.
I said, it seems like we're in Venice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in Venice, how the cruise ships go right through the city.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me. When
Yeah,
we did
it is like river cruise.
Yeah, like
Yes.
a big
Yeah.
ship
Yes.
river cruise. That was exciting. And so you got all the way down, and then you were able to somehow make the ship go sideways and over to the.
This is, of course, pure craftsmanship. Many people believe this is big magic, but it's not. It's craftsmanship. To me, it's big magic to play a violin. I don't understand how that's possible. Driving a ship, for sure, is not.
Well, you did a marvelous job. And then we had this, what do you call it? The deck, the stairs, that go up.
The gangway.
The gangway.
Yeah.
So I noticed that when you docked the ship, they brought this great big gangway that went up to, it looked like the 5th floor, I would guess.
Yes.
And then you had a smaller gangway over here up to about the 3rd floor, maybe
Big four.
4th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And we used the smaller one to start with, and then we came home the other night from an excursion,
And
And we
suddenly
used-
the big one.
and we used the big one.
Yes, because of the tide. Tide range close to 5 meters. How many feet are that? 5 meters is 15 feet about, right? Yeah, I think so.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
I've also read that you have to go with the current and the tide coming in and coming out of Bordeaux
It
at
makes
just
it
the right
easier.
time.
It makes it easier. Yesterday we departed a little too early with the tide in respect. So the current was stronger than we really wanted, but okay.
Kind of fighting against
Yeah,
it at that
it's
point.
a part of the game.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest challenges in being a ship's captain?
I think as a captain, I'm responsible for safety and security on board. What comes on the plate in the restaurant is not really my highest priority. This is for hotel director to
Yeah.
control. But safety and security is my priority, and I have my authority reaches very far when it comes to protecting safety and security. And I think the most difficult thing as a captain is to put the line, what we can do and what we cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the guests coming here with the expectations to visit all the ports we are supposed to visit, but sometimes circumstances they have other plans, and then we must abort and find an alternative. And for me to take that step is sometimes difficult.
I think it would be for anybody because there's so many consequences on each side, you know, that as you're looking.
Expectations are not met, and people get disappointed, and that's the last thing we want, to disappoint people. We want people to have a good time here, and we want people to have a nice experience when they're out cruising with us. That's why we're around.
Well, I think you go overboard as far as you can go to see that people's expectations are met, that people are having a good time. What I've noticed on Azamara, and I've done quite a bit of cruising on them, what I notice is that everybody really pulls together well.
Yeah.
It's when you say a team effort and team building, I mean, we've said that in management 1,000 times, but you seem to really have put it together as far as team building goes on Azamara.
Who puts it together? I think it's good to come here as an employee with an open mind. One should not try to have prejudice. Everybody has in one way or another, but it's good to try to let go and be open-minded. And once you approach the crew with an open mind, you will find a very rich world on board. Is my experience and my absolute opinion.
Well, you've got so many different people from different nationalities that speak different languages, and yet it seems like kind of a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, of course it is. People are in it for business. People are coming here to care for their families, to make money, and to care for their families. I am no exception. I like what I'm doing here, but the main reason why I'm here is the business. Simply.
How are the locations of the crew determined? So I know you have a contract, and your contract is what, 6 months, 10 months?
My contract is 10 weeks is the standard for me as a captain.
10 weeks?
10 weeks on board, 10 weeks at home. But the length of the contract is different for different positions.
That's interesting. So you have your 10 weeks, and during that 10 weeks, I would imagine back here, somebody says, in Florida, somebody says, okay, for 2022, we've got 4 ships now. These ships are going to go here, 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 here. Do they also say, and this is the crew? Do they figure that out for the whole year that will be on each one of these 4?
For key positions, they do that, but not for all crew members. We are manned by a different company. It's not Azamara, and they shuffle crew around as they deem necessary. We have a fixed schedule for the senior positions, but for the lower ranks, it's open on which ship they go.
It's more open.
They do have sort of time slots, so they know when to go, but they don't always know where to go.
What would you say is one of the most critical decisions that you've had to make, other than the fact of quitting your job and going to some greener pastures?
Yeah.
What kind of critical decisions do captains have to make? That's really what I'm asking. Weather, maybe?
Yeah, weather is always of highest priority. Weather is what causes often mistakes. To misjudge the power of the weather, to overestimate the performance of the ship, maybe to overestimate the performance of the bridge team, and I've been lucky enough not to have any big emergencies. I cross my fingers that it will never happen.
we were even having concerns about piracy, and that's pretty well settled down, hasn't it? Even off, I think it was mostly off the coast of Africa, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. Actually, now on 1st of January 2023, the high-risk stamp of this area is going to be lifted. So it's not considered a high-risk area anymore. There have been some pirate activity in the Gulf of Aden, the Western Indian Ocean, but it's minimum. It's definitely not a thing that keeps me sleepless when transiting the area. There are other areas in the world, West Africa, one of them, Malacca Strait, but it's more like robberies than real piracy. The real piracy has been in Gulf of Aden, where they hijack the ships and they negotiate the ransom.
What you're worried more about now would be passengers that might get pickpocketed or something like that.
No,
as
it's
they
not
go
like,
in, or-
okay.
I don't mean on the ship. I mean
Pickpocketing
when they
ashore
go
is
out,
sort
yeah.
of, okay, bad, but life goes on.
Yeah, it's kind of a
What
fact of
worries
life.
me is serious illness on board. We have a doctor, we have 3-4 nurses even, and they can do some things, but they cannot do everything. And being out at sea means being away from hospitals.
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
So-
If
so
somebody needed to be life
medical
transmitted,
evacuation.
yeah,
Yeah.
do you have to go to shore to do that, or
We
can
have
you
to
think-
go within helicopter range from land.
And then, do they land on the ship?
No,
Or?
there is a diver coming down with a stretcher,
Okay.
and then you get tied up,
Wow.
lifted to the helicopter.
But that's good because
Yeah.
at least you have an alternative if you have something really
There
serious.
is an option.
That's,
And
that's
this
pretty
is something that happens on regular basis on a cruise ship. I experienced it many times, and I think most of the time sunshine stories. People, they get their heart stopped. Chopper comes within 2 hours maybe, definitely within 2 hours if you're close to land. And then they're home
Well, you've got
and
a lot
walking
of
around again after a couple of days.
you've got a lot of old people like me, so
Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
those of us that have the time.
yeah. Knock on
travel,
wood,
you
so
know.
far with Azamara, nothing.
That's great.
Yes, that's
Now
good.
think about a young person who says, "You know, I'd really like to be a captain." What would you say to that person today?
I would say find out what it takes and
What do you think it does take?
It takes some determination and some skills, and it takes an open mind. It takes the willingness to learn things. Once you have that, I think you're good to go.
Good to go.
Yes.
I want to talk about another just fascinating interest that you have, and that's classical piano. How did you get interested in that?
It's the same as with the sea. I cannot remember a time when I was not interested in music.
And did you play the piano as a young child?
Yes.
How old were you?
I was always playing. We were lucky enough to have a piano at home. I was starting already with 4 years, clonky, clonky, plinky, and lessons when I was 8. Yeah, that counts.
So why did you not go a classical piano performance?
As a profession,
Yeah.
you mean? Oh my God. Being a musician is like being a sportsman. If you're not the best, it's a very, very nice job with a lot of fun. But to make a living out of it is not easy.
Not the same.
And if I was economically independent, maybe I would do it. But life also have the reality side. It's not only about dreams, must be also realistic.
So what do you do with this interest? How do you,
I keep it alive.
and what do you do?
What do you do?
Do you play
Yes, of course.
on the ship?
I am a little reluctant about that. Okay, I know. I've been discussing this. I have lots of music friends back home. I play in an orchestra with my bassoon.
All right.
And I see when we are playing in public how happy people are about live music. To hear live music from real instruments without any amplifiers or anything like that, just live music. And live instrument, real instruments, they create overtones, and this gives a completely different experience for the ear. And this you cannot create electronically, it's impossible. So, as being able to play an instrument, I think it's almost like a duty to play for people. I'm not a professional. I do not play flawless. It never happens. There are mistakes left and right, but as long as that is accepted, yes, I'm prepared to play. But I want to do it on those premises, that I'm not a professional pianist. I play mainly for my own, but if somebody wants to listen, nice.
So
That's how I see it.
do you do it between contracts? At
I
home?
do it between contracts at home. Then I play a lot. Here on board, time is limited.
Yeah, yeah. And you love it,
Of
sounds
course,
like.
yes.
That's great.
Will
So-
keep me alive until I'm 90, at least.
What would you like your future to be over the next 10 years?
I don't like a big change. I'm happy. I try to live on this day today.
I do too. I totally
yeah.
understand what you're saying. And who knows for sure what's going to happen over the next
I hope
10
that I'm
years.
still healthy in 10 years.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
that's the case, I'm already happy.
Now, you've sailed the world many, many times. If you had something that you could say, this is what I would like it to be, what would you like for the world? It's in a lot of upheaval and disruption and COVID and so many things that we have been battling in
Yes.
the world. What would be your wish for the world?
I don't know. For myself, I just put on the wall, do the right thing. And do the right thing for me is try to reduce what I use, energy. I try to buy less crap from China, to reduce my environmental footprint, to choose where I spend my things. And I think, for example, I own a car, but I never use it. I go on bike. And I mean not a motorbike, I mean a pedal bike. Wherever I go, if I cannot go by bike, if it's too far, then I go by train. I love traveling by train. And I really avoid, if I can, to go by car, go by airplane, electric train, good, bike, good. And
So the climate is really important.
Obviously
to you.
one thing.
Yeah, because it could destroy the world.
But it's not only that. Do the right thing, respect other people.
Mm-hmm.
It goes for everybody, from me until whoever is in charge of the big countries. And we can clearly see in the world that it's not the case. There's not so much respect in many countries for other people, or for people that are of a different opinion, whatever different approach they have to life.
I love that. I want a big
Yes.
banner.
Do the right
Do
thing.
the right thing.
Yes.
And if we all live by that,
Yes. Live your dream, do the right thing.
the world would be a lot better.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
You're just doing a fabulous job.
Yes. Thanks.
And I really have a lot of praise for Azamara and for what they're doing together. So thank you so much.
Thanks.